Please, can I have a roll call?
Dr. BESE? Present. Mr. Davis?
Present.
Miss Edmonston? Okay.
Keep going.
Mr. Garvey?
Here.
Miss Holloway? Here. Dr. Jones?
Here.
Miss Lewis? Miss Orange-Jones?
Present.
Mr. Rock?
Present.
Dr. Thomason?
Present.
Ms. Fauché? Okay. You have a quorum.
Madam Chair, I
Yes,
believe
sir.
those other, Ms. Lewis and Ms. Boche will be with us in just a minute. They just stepped down the
Ms.
hall.
Lewis?
Oh,
She's at
I was right.
Thank you. Okay, may I please have the first item?
But not her voice.
Your first item is on page 1, item 2.1, consideration of an update report regarding the 2019 request for applications timeline for all charter school authorizers and the 2019 Common Charter application evaluation process. The department recommendation is to receive the report.
Okay, thank you very much. And
So moved.
so moved. Oh, sorry. Mr. Davis, can I have a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Garvey, thank you so much. Can we please have an update, department?
BESE members, you all had asked for an update on the charter application process for this year. As you know, the charter application process begins in December, and currently any local charter applicants that are submitting charter applications to local parishes have submitted those applications. Those were due on March 7th. Local parishes have until June 7th to approve or deny those applications, and then charter schools can choose to appeal to this board if they are denied. We currently also accept appeals from local charter applicants who are seeking to appeal to BESE for a type 2. You know, appeals happen when a local charter applicant has been approved by a local parish, but they find the terms of the contract being asked of them to be unacceptable. And if that's the case, a charter application can be heard by this board on appeal. And so at this point, we have one charter application submitted to us on appeal from a school that has currently been approved by St. John Parish.
Okay. Thank you for that update. We do have a few comment cards. We'll take those and then we'll go to board comment. May I please have Kevin George, Ty Manieri, Thomas Himmel, Allison Andrews, and then Michael Gapay as well. Just come fill up the front row and then just sit in the back row. Good afternoon, Superintendent George. Feel free to start. Just make sure it's on.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. Thanks. Thanks for allowing us to come up here and to kind of give you an update on where we are with our type 1.
Wait, hold on. I don't think people can hear you. Just pull it closer to you.
You need to turn it on.
This is the worst mic.
There we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to switch? Okay, is this better?
So much better.
Awesome, sounds much better. So again, thanks BESE board members for allowing us to come here today. Just to give you a little bit of history, first of all, my name is Kevin George. I'm superintendent of schools here in St. John the Baptist Parish. We're not here, but there. Back in 2016, we were first approached by the board, LAPC's board, to ask for a type 1 charter school. Back in 2016, we denied them that application. They came to BESE later on in that summer, and you also denied them as well. So we began to work together at that point to try to get an application that would be satisfactory. So in 2017, we actually approved their application so that we could open up the following year in as early as 2018. 2018 came and passed. The school did not open. You may hear a lot today about who was responsible or what delays happened, but let me just tell you this, that the biggest thing that up until this point for them to open was actually having a location. You know, we've heard, you know, the folks tell us that we've delayed them, but you can't open a school unless you have a facility. We received their facility on February 6th of this year, 2019. February 6th is when we received where they were going to actually open a school. So anything before then, obviously, where you're going to open a school if you have no facility. We did offer a facility, Leon Gottschall, which was available at that time. It's no longer available. But now they've given us on February 6th where they were going to open the school. So the big thing about that is that the school is on a private school campus. We have been unable to find anywhere else in this state that has a charter school and a private school on the same campus. So to me, we had to do a lot of work to ensure that public dollars were being funneled in the right direction. So that's where we are now. So on February 6th, they tell us where they were going to locate. On February 15th, we asked for the lease. Hey, give us the lease of the school now that of the location. March 19th of that same year, we asked again. It had been about a month and a half, and we still didn't have that information. So on March 19th, we asked for the lease again. March 22nd, we actually received the lease. 4 days later, we say, hey, here are the problems that we actually have with this lease. We have a board meeting on the 4th, which that item was tabled because we had not received a response yet from the charter group. And that's kind of where we stand today. I was a little taken aback when they said they were going to BESE to appeal. I said, well, we haven't denied y'all yet, so I know that may be well within your rights, but obviously when you go to appeal and you send that out there, that, you know, our board members may take, you know, a little offense to that because we have been working in good faith. But again, I think the biggest thing I wanted this board to know is that, because I know there have been emails going back and forth, I've spoken on the phone with a few individuals on the BESE board about this process. At the end of the day, no matter what you hear here today, we did not receive their location until February 6th of this year. So anything that happened before then, you can't open a school unless you have a location. So that is the biggest thing there. So we actually had an executive meeting on April the 11th, which went really good. It was probably our most productive meeting that we ever had. So we're here today because I was asked to be here to talk about this matter. I do believe that St. John the Baptist Parish, we can work through this issue. We want a type 1 school. We want that charter school in our district, and that's why this board ultimately approved it. I do believe that, and this is not, you know, saying anything against their board, but it is new for them. It is new for them. I think if you had a group like KIP or IDEA, people who do this all the time and have replicated success in many different places, probably it may have been smoother. However, that's not where we are, but we are working with them, and we do want to make this work. And now, the rest of the time.
Thank you very much. We'll go just down.
Madam Chairman, do you want questions as we go along or at the end?
Let's take questions at the end. Just
Okay.
get all comments out. Yes.
Hi, thanks, Chairperson Orange Jones.
Use that mic.
I'll use a working mic. My name's Ty Maneri. I'm here today representing the St. John the Baptist Parish School Board. Just to add a little to Superintendent's comments, we have been going back and forth on the contract, and we have been asking questions that I think they'll represent as inappropriate. But I think the unique circumstances here that Superintendent George laid out with this co-location at an existing private school has really caused us to ask questions that don't always come up in this point in a charter negotiation. We've got very specific concerns about the co-location and more so the interrelatedness between Riverside Academy, the school it's going to be located at, and Louisiana Premier Charter School. And we've simply been trying to ensure that this relationship between Riverside and Louisiana Premier doesn't run afoul of Louisiana's prohibition on the conversion of private schools to charter schools. There's a lot of overlap between the leadership of these two schools, and we're just trying to make sure that their professional relationships, be it a lease or transportation agreements, protect the funds of St. John the Baptist and the students that are enrolled there. And we've got some real concerns, and we've asked them to address them. And responses have been hit or miss. I checked through my emails yesterday. It's been since February 6th since I've heard from an attorney for the charter school. And yet we consistently at our meetings get pushback about our delays. we've been working hard on this, and there's been a lot done by school staff, and I got to tell you, I work with a lot of school boards around the state. This school board is engaged. They know the issues, they know what's going on, and they ask the tough questions. And so, yeah, it's been a pretty grueling negotiation, and I expect there's a bit more that needs to be worked out to get a contract in place that we're comfortable with, and that we can get past the DSEG court, because we're under a current DSEG order down there, and we're looking to co-locate a school with rebel end zones in their football field. We got some heavy lifts ahead of us, no doubt, but the school board's been committed to that, and we're going to continue to move this forward. We sent off a final contract that we think's in an, I say as a lawyer, an executable form. Whether 7 board members go for it is another story. But as of Friday, they've been in possession of an executable contract that we plan to present to the board as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good morning, board, BESE board, and thank you for hearing us this morning. My name is Thomas Email. I'm a task force member with Louisiana Premier Charter. I've been a part of it, putting the pieces together since before the initial application went to St. John Parish. As a business person in St. John, a little concerned about the timeline and the length of time. Mr. George has been very courteous to us in working with us, and we want to get this done at the local level. Our first attempt at an operating agreement after the charter school was approved in 2017. It's been almost 20 months, and we still don't have an operating agreement. In regards to the site, we only received a preliminary operating agreement in August of 2018. Our concerns with the site was we could not negotiate a site. Nobody would negotiate with us without an operating agreement. So when we got that in August, we talked to Ms. Caroline Romer. She advised that we hire a third party, 10 Square, Ms. Kathy Padian, to do a site assessment. We did that September 1st, almost immediately upon receiving that operating agreement. She got that report back to us in December. We brought it to the board in January, got it voted on, and finalized February 1st. So worked very quickly on the site. She looked at 4 separate sites, and she came back to us saying this site gave us and our students the best chance to be successful in the education environment. So that's why that site was chosen. I'd like to correct Mr. Maneri about rebel emblems in the end zone. I've been around that place for a long time, and to my knowledge today, there's nothing like that. So I'm not sure what he saw or what he think he may know. But that school was started for segregation back in the 70s. I was not even born then. It's been desegregated for the last 33 years. And parts of that school now are 50-50 diversification, well diversified in its staff and its students. The agreement between Louisiana Premier Charter and the Academy is an arm distance agreement, simple third party agreement with a triple net lease. They simply have space available, and we're leasing it. It's a walk-in ready building. We don't have to put any money into it. It's ready to go today. So when we looked at the other sites, or Ms. Kathy Padian looked at it, all of them required significant initial capital money to make them school ready. This site gave us walk-in ready ability and gave us the best price for our bang for our buck. So we thought we were doing the right thing with that site based on our assessment from Ms. Kathy Padian. With that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon.
Can't hear you. Push it. There you go.
Hi, Allison Andrews from Louisiana Premier Charter, and I do want to thank you for hearing us today, and we are sorry to be here, and I do want to let you know we do want to work with St. John Parish. It's just been very difficult. I'll skip the first year, and now it's 2 years into the second type 1, and we just feel like we're not sure if we can overcome the barriers. We have over 550 applicants already. We are ready to do student selection this week. I'm ready to interview teachers next week. So at their April 25th board meeting, another delay or something doesn't go right and they vote no, then that puts us behind again. So we're just asking for a way to overcome these barriers so that we can move forward in the best way possible. We had almost 100 parents show up on April 7th. They came with t-shirts that none of us asked them to do. They even brought me one. So we have people in the community that want this to happen. I am an educator. I know that Mr. George did say that we're beginners, and we are, but he and I have practiced the same best practices, and I'm just hoping that, you know, education does have creativity and you do think out of the box sometimes, and I'm hoping that because of what we're doing, nobody's done it before, that it is good because we will be built on a solid foundation of best practices. I do everything by the Department of Education book, interventions, collaboration, assessments, student instruction, teacher support. So we will have a solid best practices foundation. We've just got to figure out a way to get past these hurdles so that we don't have to tell our parents that this is not happening. So I appreciate your concern and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me a chance to speak. My name is Michael Goday. Pronunciation is difficult, I understand. And I'm president of the East Baton Rouge Parish School Board. And I did not realize an appeal hearing was breaking out in this meeting about rules and timelines. I know, I'm joking. But I just wanted to bring up the fact that some of this is all pointing out. In the process, after a local school entity has denied a charter, really what the BESE board and their guidelines are doing is not really an appeal. What they're really doing is a new finding of fact, because they're hiring their own person to go out and make evaluations. They're getting new evaluations that are coming in, and they are allowing the applicant to speak to that new evaluation. No place in the BESE rules and the guidelines and the details that are presented here is there any opportunity specifically laid out for the local entity who denied to provide the information to them about their evaluation, to provide the information about the communications they've had with the applicant, to provide communications about why they denied it. And so it is really there's only three parties involved in this. There is the applicant, the consultant that you hire, and BESE. The local board who made the original determination is nowhere addressed in any of the dates and guidelines. So while I fully appreciate the ability of BESE to approve these and approve a Type 2 charter over the recommendation of the local board, it seems to me almost unconscionable that BESE does not take into consideration formally and make it part of the record the determination by the local school board and why that determination was made. So in no way am I trying to usurp the power of BESE to make those determinations. I just think your guidelines need to have a fuller and more robust ability for the local school boards to get the information so that you see the full picture. You've just heard a long discussion about which one party thinks is the truth, what the other party thinks is the truth, and I'm sure, like everything else, the truth is probably somewhere in between. But you're not availing yourself of the determinations made by the local school board. We are in East Baton Rouge. We have 20-something now charter schools, and many of those are Type 1s. We have 10 applications coming up, and we will be going through those. And so I think you need to avail yourself of the information that we develop and the knowledge and intelligence that we put into those things for you to make your decision. Again, the decision is yours. You have the power. No one's trying to take that away from you. I'm just trying to give you a better and clearer picture of how that determination was made. And nowhere in these guidelines is there a provision for that. So I sent all of you a letter outlining a list of steps that I would like to see added to the timeline, and I strongly hope that you consider accepting those suggestions.
Thank you very much. At this point, we'll move to board discussion, and I'll start off. Gary.
At the risk of alienating my longtime friend that used to be a principal for me there, Mrs. Allison Andrews, I'm totally confused. I thought this was an agenda item to receive a report about the timeline. It looks to me like we've gotten far afield, and while I appreciate all of your comments and concerns on it, I don't think this is the appropriate time for that to happen. I think that's supposed to happen after June in the timeline, as I remember. So I guess my question is, are we opening an appeal process today, or are we dealing with receiving a report as the item showed?
We're dealing with receiving a report. I don't know if you want to speak to just clarifying what the item is.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, I was asked to provide a report on the state of charter applications in the timeline I stated that there is one appeal that we've received from the school in St. John, and that appeal is being reviewed by the department and will be brought forward to BESE for a vote at the appropriate time, as you say, in June. But my intent today, per the item, was just to provide the update.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Additional board comments about the initial motion? Mr. Garvey.
Well, I did have a question for the superintendent about this situation. You had said that you would like to have a type 1 charter school in the district, if I heard you right. Did I hear you right?
Well, Mr. Garvey, if we could just clarify, I think the point made before was that technically this item is not germane to the topic on the table, though this topic is obviously incredibly important. It's actually not germane.
I'm raising this as a point of order.
He's raising a point of order.
I think the further discussion on the matter is not in accordance with the agenda item.
Okay. All right. So additional board discussion about the actual motion.
Did we have more public comment cards on 2.1 that's actually germane?
We don't. Oh, we do.
It looks like there was a lot of activity in the audience, so I thought we might have more public comment cards.
We actually just have one. Ms. Romer.
Caroline Romer, Executive Director, Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools. My comments are directed to 2.1 and the timeline and third-party evaluations and how that all works. As an organization, we supported legislation now way back when that created the third-party evaluator, and the whole idea was to give applications the opportunity to have entities with the expertise and some independence from the authorizers to be able to look, at least on paper, and determine if an applicant presented an application that was of quality and that evaluator thought made sense to have the opportunity to serve students. What we have seen in that time is many authorizers actually hire third-party evaluators that we would question their true independence from the district. What we've seen time and time again is there are often people that either have been formally employed by that district or another district who are often being directed by the superintendent and even board members around what their desires are with specific applications. That's a problem. We do not disagree with Mr. Goday's points that there should be an opportunity for districts in the appeal process to speak to what their concerns were about an application. That's not something that I think is unfair to ask. It is a big decision, but again, what we've consistently seen throughout the state and at the legislature and other places as an attempt to block BESE from being an authorizer. I don't think that that's what Mr. Goday was suggesting at all. We have a nice working relationship there, but I would just point out that oftentimes the third-party evaluations are not, in our opinion, independent evaluations, and that they are sometimes very leading. So I would encourage BESE to, again, consider what Mr. Goday has said, but also to consider the fact that oftentimes charters are in a very hostile situation with some districts. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Madam Chairman, I have a question for staff. Just to make sure that we're talking about, having to do with timelines, is June a proper time for BESE to address the appeal of this charter?
The timeline that we've published allows the department to accept appeals and approve them on a timeline that is specific to the individual appeal. So in other words, the timeline does not say that appeals must be reviewed on this date. That means that this board can choose to review this appeal at the point it chooses. The department is prepared to have a recommendation to the board by June if the board chooses to hear it in June.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ms. Boucher.
Okay, I'm a little confused as well. What's on the agenda today is to receive the 2019 timeline, correct?
Correct.
Now, this timeline is just being put forth by the department for this year? Is it in policy, this particular timeline? I mean, we already have a policy, so we're not being asked to change a policy.
No, I was asked to provide just an update on where we are with charter applications writ large and the timeline for when those would be considered.
All right, so this is a timeline just for informational purposes
Yes.
that we're receiving.
Yes.
If, to Mr. Goday's point, and somewhat to Ms. Romer's point, that we wanted to consider at some point in the future some input from the local school system in the process, how and when would that be appropriate?
So our charter application process and timelines align to policy that this board has adopted, or the BESE board has adopted. That policy can be amended, as you know, to incorporate additional steps if you all choose.
I would just ask the department to have a conversation, maybe with Ms. Romer and Mr. Goday, and see if it feels that it would be appropriate to incorporate some of that in it, and then just bring it to our attention sometime in the future.
We're happy to do
If that
that.
were the case, if you just have a discussion with them.
Yeah, we're happy to do that. I'll reach out directly.
Thank you. Dr. Bofi.
I'm wondering if this is already happening. So I know when we consider charter applicants that we get a lot of background information. I understand that there's not the piece that Mr. Goday is referring to is not spelled out here. I do believe, though, that I've had information in the past based on where the local school system was, and I imagine that's on a I guess that could be on a case-by-case basis. But so my question for you is this a practice that's in place, whether or not it's spelled out here?
Not necessarily.
We do seek to get information from the local board on written evaluations. Sometimes we receive them, sometimes we don't receive them. But as you suggest, it's sometimes on a case-by-case basis. It is not an official step listed.
I thought I remembered the practice being in place, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Holloway.
I'd like to make a statement in regards to the St. John and Premier Charter, but I don't know if I'm in order or not. Pardon?
As a board member, you have a point of privilege to say what you'd like.
I wasn't sure. Jim was asking a question, but I'm not sure if we can talk or not.
Not germane, it is not.
What's that?
With the spirit of it being clearly this is not the motion, but if you have something you need to say.
A couple of things. First of all, I believe, thank you, Premier Charter, for being here, and Mr. Email Allison. I was able to meet her last week at the job fair. Not sure if the board president is here. Are you board president? Are you on the board?
He's at work, so I was part of the task force. He asked me to come. They had
So
an
you're
accident.
on the task force,
Yes,
you're not a
ma'am.
board member?
Not a board member, yes, correct. There was an accident at Monsanto, so he had to tend to the Monsanto
Thank
accident.
you. But a statement or statements to say to you, as an experienced director of a charter school in the public setting for approximately 40 years, I want you to understand the process takes a long time, and it's high maintenance. And for BCA, it took us 4 years to get to the point of being able to open up. And you know what stopped us? The building. To negotiate. So please understand that working with a school system is a task that you need to be committed to work, to be open to the communications, because ultimately, as a type 1, the superintendent oversees that new school of choice. And ultimately, the superintendent's responsible for whatever occurs within that school. I came from that district, then I switched over to charter, and I had to answer to the superintendent because we are a type 1. So be patient, work with the district, and it will unfold into your likings. But don't be anxious to move forward because you're going to get into a glitch. And so we were very patient, worked it out with the superintendent, and we eventually had that building, that lease, and everything is in order. So I appreciate your willingness, and take that to heart because it's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holloway. I'm assuming your comment would apply to all schools, not just this case.
Oh, to all, because I do a lot of advising, supporting, consulting with charters that are starting up, and everybody's just ready to get out that gate, but you can't. There are processes, procedures to follow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goday, for being here too.
Additional comments, board members? Any objections to the initial motion? Having none, the motion passes. Next item. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Your next item is on page 4, item 2.2, consideration of revocation proceedings for BESE authorized type 2 charter schools. The LDE recommendation, we will take this in 2 parts. So our first motion is to receive the report regarding the revocation of the charter contract for Laurel Oaks Charter School as recommended by the LDE, and direct the State Superintendent of Education and the BESE Executive Director to commence revocation proceedings as outlined in Bulletin 126.
Thank you. Can I please have a motion?
So moved.
So moved, Dr. Bofi. Second by Mr. Davis. Thank you. Superintendent?
So BESE members, we are bringing forward a request to you to begin revocation proceedings for 2 charter schools. BESE has the authority to revoke a school or end its charter contract prior to the end of the term of that contract if there are serious violations of law and policy. In both of these instances, the department has concerns about ongoing and significant concerns related to the operations of the school, and thus we are bringing forward to you 2 schools for consideration. And again, you are voting on beginning revocation proceedings. If you vote to begin such proceedings, there will subsequently be a public hearing in which the facts of the department's rationale will be laid out, and then there will be a subsequent vote in June on the actual revocation of the schools. So today you're just voting to begin proceedings.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a few comment cards. Again, reminder, board members, we're specifically, this is specifically concerning Laurel or Oaks. And then we'll move to board comment. So may I please have Dr. Jeremy Blunt, Christina Laverne, Ms. Pamela Keys, Pastor Ernest Jackson, and then behind them in the first row, Tyra Banks, Lori Wilkerson, Caroline Romer. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. So good afternoon. We'll begin.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Jeremy Blunt. I'm the board chair for the Laurel Oaks Foundation, the sponsoring organization of the Laurel Oaks Charter School. We are here today to decide the recommendation to revoke the charter of the Laurel Oaks Charter School if it should proceed to the hearing stage. This recommendation is not based on any deficiency of academic performance or safety by the teachers, staff, and especially the students. The recommendation of the staff of the Department of Education is simply based off alleged mismanagement of operations of the charter school, grounded primarily in an unfortunate incident of misguided discipline by the original head of school, who was swiftly and categorically discharged. This incident occurred over more than 2 years ago, and all legal consequences of the act have been resolved by the Laurel Oaks Foundation. The main basis of the recommendation is alleged financial mismanagement, which occurred during a period of 2 years ago. There has been no consideration for the remedies enacted by the board, nor has there been any consideration of the progress made by rooting out the mismanagement and installing sound management and accounting principles and safeguards. In addition, the current management board has reached out to the Department of Education, and despite its requests to help or simply have a meeting, no assistance was forthcoming, not even a visit from the school and its students. The focus of this hearing by the committee should be the ability of Laurel Oaks School to provide the students and their families a healthy, safe, and learning environment for the 2019-20 school year. It is truly the legitimate inquiry to answer those questions. The DOE will make every effort not to answer a lot of questions, but simply to take like a garbage bag and pour out everything that has been Laurel Oak's mistakes and shortcomings and try to paint a picture as if they have been malicious. But let me tell you what you will not hear. You will not hear them talk about their attempts to rectify the school's deficiencies, except through one action, the recommendation to the board that the school relinquish its charter by merging with another charter. When that failed, a series of strategic actions occurred to bring us to this day. Doing my due diligence in undertaking the duties as chair, I discovered a serious breach of corporate ethics in what was called a secret meeting that was held at a downtown restaurant attended by all of the teachers and staff of the Laurel Oak School with no knowledge of the board, which made a serious matter of why it was such a serious matter was because the very representative of the State Department of Education, which is recommending this, was at that meeting. Who called the meeting?
Wrap up your comments.
And why? There's a lot to be asked and there's a lot to be discussed.
Thank you. Before we go to the next comment, I want to just remind the board, because it is a distinction with a difference, the motion on the table is actually not a decision about revocation. The motion is, just to get the language clear, to direct the State Superintendent of Education and the BESE Executive Director to commence revocation proceedings today. Want to ensure that we are clear on that as a board. With that, Mr. Dunn, go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Christina Laverne. I'm a parent for one of the children attending Laurel Oaks. And my son has been there since the incident with the first principal. However, since others have taken over the school, especially recently, I have seen a dramatic turnaround with my son. Academically, behavioral-wise, attitude, he's a totally different child. He's growing. I also have letters from family and friends who've witnessed this change with my son.
Thank you for your comment.
Hello, my name is Pamela B. Keys.
Just remind you to put your mic on, which you see, just press the, there you go. And pull
Hello
it as
again.
close to you, better.
I'm Pamela B. Keys. I'm excited to be here. I have never, ever presented myself before a BESE board. I want to tell you about a great school named Laurel Oaks Charter. I came to Laurel Oaks last year. Small school, very excited to be there, excited to meet the person who was in charge at that time. I came from a small school, Geo Prep. So I knew about small schools, that family feel, and how they would just take that family, and how I could see that school make that rapid change. I met Miss Laverne's son because he's a SPED student. That child is totally in an inclusion setting. He's reading. This year, I even saw more in that school. I saw a person come in who just put the finishing touches on what was necessary. We have a nurse that's there. We've had all type of health and services. We have education programs that are working, CKLA, Eureka Math. We have professional development, great. We have bus transportation. We have a counselor on board. We've been providing all type of support that is necessary for our families and our students. We received more than 100 applicants for the upcoming school year. We've done, with all these things, I was really upset because I thought the BESE board only addressed schools who were Fs. We've never had a chance to, receive a grade. And the people I recommended to the school said, well, I didn't see where y'all were F school. So I'm just asking each member of the board, allow us the opportunity to receive a grade. Give us the time we need. We would like to show you what we can do. We are right in Mid-City. We're in a great location. And we're doing outstanding things at Laurel Oaks. I've taught in 3 states, and I was against charter schools. But I see some great things happening here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pastor Ernest Jackson, the lead and senior pastor of Greater Works Church in the Mid-City area of Baton Rouge, and it's our pleasure to have partnered with the Laurel Oaks School, also in Mid-City. When forming relationships with others in the community, we look for organizations that have that same analogous trait, which is kind of like a similar heart toward community and also toward that of people. At Laurel Oaks, through relationships there, under the leadership of Ms. Stephanie Ashford at the helm, we've seen community involvement and development with families and the people that they serve week in, actually day in and day out. It's an amazing place from the leadership, faculty, and staff on down. Our church has a statement that says, we're making Mid-City great again. And man, through our positive touch, through interactions that are healthy, and the effects that are left behind, we're doing this also with Laurel Oaks and seeing it happen week in and week out. We're also pleasantly surprised to know that over half of the young scholars that attend this moderately placed Mid-City charter school in the last 9 weeks were on AB honor roll. That's to be commended. And they're literally growing every day in numbers in enrollment. There's an adage that I've personally adapted in my life which says people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And this is definitely true of the Laurel Oaks School, Ms. Ashford, the faculty, and the staff. Indeed, the children enrolled at this amazing school truly do care about the knowledge being presented because they know how much they are cared for. Today, my friends, the thought of ever possibly revoking the charter of this dynamic Mid-City school, in my humble and feeble opinion, would be a huge mistake and disservice to the community of which it serves. Moreover, the children that are actively learning, and actively growing in this Eden of cultivated learning called the Laurel Oaks Charter Academy. Thank you today.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a couple more speakers, so if you mind.
Caroline Romer, Executive Director, Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools. My comments were directed to what we're doing today, which has been clarified. This is actually not the revocation itself, but this is setting up for you to move into that discussion. And I just wanted to comment that your policy outlines a very strong process and a thoughtful one, because this is a hard decision and it deserves more conversation that includes the ability for both sides to come to the table and tell their story and talk about what's going on. So again, to be a charter school comes with a lot of challenges. It's a privilege to serve students, and we never like to go through non-renewals or revocations, but it is part of the work we do. And so we just wanted to compliment both BESE and the department for following your policy, and that there will be a time and place through this revocation process to hear from the families, the teachers, the governing body, and others of these 2 schools. And we will be there to support, again, those schools and you as you go through this decision.
Thank you for your comment. It's a very important clarification. At this time, we're done with public comment. We do have the board discussion. Dr. Bofi?
I'd like to hear more about what the revocation process will look like.
This process, as Ms. Romer stated, is outlined in policy, and we will partner with the BESE staff to subsequently, after this meeting, hold a public hearing. At that hearing, the department will lay out the facts for the reasons for our recommendation, and the school will also have the opportunity to lay out facts to support their assertions. After that hearing, this board, again, will have the opportunity to vote on the actual revocation, and that will be at the June meeting. And you all will have either yourselves participated in the hearing or hear a summary of the hearing at that meeting and be asked to vote. If you vote to revoke the school in June, that means the school will not reopen in the 1920 school year.
But the children will finish, so the children will finish this school year,
That's
no
correct.
matter what?
That's correct.
Okay.
Ms. Holloway?
Yes, I have a question and for clarification from Ms. Kunjan. This lady here mentioned that the school didn't have a letter grade and that thinking that the department only works with schools that have an F. So can you clarify this to the group about why or why not there are no letter grades? And if so, how do you work with these schools?
So this particular school does not yet have testing grades. In other words, the students enrolled in the school are not yet in the 3rd grade, so there is not a letter grade for the school as was suggested. However, the department and BESE have the authority to revoke schools if there are ongoing, persistent, significant concerns in the operations of the school. And the standards laid out by BESE for charter schools includes standards around financial health, organizational health, and governance. And the concerns outlined in your documentation align to those standards.
Thank you. Additional board questions, comments? Are there any objections to the motion? Having none, the motion carries.
Oh, I'm
wait.
sorry.
Sorry, Ms. Edmondson.
Just for clarification again, so the hearing will not be done at a board meeting, one of our board meetings. Is that what you're saying?
The hearing will be a public meeting called between now and the June BESE meeting, and will be presided over by a hearing officer and some membership of this board.
Okay.
Would you like to speak more to that, Ms. Davis?
So the hearings are, Shane Davis, BESE staff, the hearings are set to be heard by the SIT committee, but as you know, all board members have a right to be part of a committee. You can serve as a quorum of that committee, so all board members will be invited. Okay. Obviously, it's not limited to the 3 appointments on the SIT committee. We could do that at a special call meeting. I mean, if we have a special call meeting between now and June, we could do it at that time. We just have to give 15 days notice to the folks that are having the hearing.
Okay. So concretely,
and then we would take formal board action. Either if it was a special call meeting, we could take action at that meeting. Mm-hmm. But if it was just a hearing that we had not within the limits of a special call board meeting, then we would take final action at the next board meeting.
Understood. So as SIC chair, I commit to working in partnership with the department and also the BESE staff to ensure that the board has access to the important information to understand the hearing process and the dates. Okay, great. Mr. Garvey.
Yes, I had a question for the staff. Have we had such appeals before? Haven't we had such appeals before?
The last time the department brought forward a revocation was in 2011.
And how did that turn out?
The board voted to revoke the school.
And was that appealed to the local courts?
I don't recall, but our lawyers are saying yes.
And was BESE's position upheld?
Yes.
Yes, it was. That was my memory also. Just some information to put out there.
Yeah, and that particular meeting was a special call meeting, so we handled other business, and it was all finalized in one day. We didn't have to have a time period between the meeting and the board meeting that it wasn't finally a final action. So it's an optional thing. I just wanted to make that clear.
Actually, I do have another question. So does the school certainly has the right to engage in the revocation, in the process, the hearing. Could the school choose not to go down? What are the options that the school actually has availed to them at this point? Is the only path to go down the hearing path?
this would be our path unless they voted to relinquish their
the charter. Okay, so the other alternative would be, should the school
and there's,
relinquish the charter?
much information
Understood.
is collected, exhibits, subpoenas, lots of things, and then, I mean, it's very detailed. We take a deep dive into records and things like that as part of our exhibits. So there may be other things that we discover during that process that is not outlined in the information that you have now.
Understood.
And a lot of it will be discussed in executive session with all parties involved and legal counsel.
Okay. Is that clear to everyone on the board as well?
The 211 situation that Jim was talking about, that was a special called BESE meeting for that, so it wasn't a 3-member hearing committee.
What policy outlines is that the SIT committee holds the hearing, but our policy also allows for any member of BESE to serve on that committee. So it's not limited to the named members of the SIT committee.
Or a special called meeting for that or something else of the full board. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question, procedurally.
Sorry.
I just
Yes,
have a
Ms.
question
Poche.
procedurally.
Yeah.
If it is not an actual board meeting, if it is called as a hearing, and the SID committee oversees the hearing, do then they make a recommendation to the board?
Correct.
And the
board would ratify it, just like every other.
Ratifies one way or the other. But they would, that 3-member committee would then make the recommendation if we don't have it as a full board actual meeting.
It's not limited to the 3. It's just the SIT committee would make the recommendation.
However many members attend.
Correct.
All right.
All right. Additional questions? Ms. Lewis, anything you want to? No? She has voice. Yeah, okay, great. So with this, the motion, no objections, the motion passes. Next item.
Still on page 4, item 2.2. The recommendation is to receive the report regarding the revocation of the charter contract for Smothers Academy Preparatory School as recommended by the LDE and direct the State Superintendent of Education and the BESE Executive Director to commence revocation proceedings as outlined in Bulletin 126.
So moved.
Okay, we have a move from Dr. Bofi, second from Ms. Holloway. There are some public comment cards. Can we please have Damon Smothers, Kevin Green, Sean Randall, Karita Abbott to the first row, and then on the second row, Karen Henderson, Marion Floyd, and Sarah Vandergriff. Okay, good afternoon. No, please press the mic.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
There you are.
I'm not going to be very long.
If you can start by just saying your name and your position.
My name is Damon Smothers. I'm the founder and CEO of Smothers Academy Preparatory School, and I appreciate the time to talk to you all today. And I'm not going to be very long. I want to get my other folks in that have some things to say. I would just like to, I know it's a very serious situation, and we take these things very, very serious, and we've been doing a very diligent job and have done a diligent job of correcting a lot of these things that we've had go on at the school, and we just need more time. We're the only all-male focused primary charter school in the state, and I think that we've done a pretty good job of giving these children hope when a lot of them came from hopeless situations. So I would love for us to have the opportunity to continue to do the things that we're doing, educating these kids and showing these boys a different way of life. But I want to let my headmistress and head of school, Karen Henderson, speak. Is that okay?
Ms. Henderson, absolutely. Just come to the microphone. Did she fill out a card? Did you fill out a card? You did. Absolutely. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Karen Henderson. I am the new head of school for Smothers Academy. If I might just be able to share just a little brief background of Smothers Academy and what we've been doing to address the findings that we know have been serious and we take very seriously in educating our young men. While Smothers Academy is a male-focused school with technology-integrated instruction, Smothers Academy opened in 2016-17 as a K-6 school and has added a grade each year. Although Smothers Academy is an open enrollment school, the students targeted for Smothers Academy were specifically students who had a history of low academics, along with students who had been suspended in their prior schools, in an effort to change those narratives of students. We know in the 2018-19 school year, Smothers Academy focused a great deal on its academics, enlisted the support of outside consultants in the areas of special education, governance, compliance, and finance, so that we can continue to drive the achievement and the populations of students we serve. But I wanted to just mention, we know that Smothers Academy opened in the year of 2016-17 with a 36.7, which is an F. And that obviously in our second year moved to a 44.7 with a 73.2, 1.6 points away from a B. And we're grateful for this opportunity to share with you today the things that we're continuing as an organization to address those findings that we consider serious. We know this schools in their year 0 through 3 is when organizations make the most mistakes. And Smothers Academy has been no exception to this fact. Mistakes have been made and corrected in the best interest of the students and families we serve. Today, we aim to just acknowledge those mistakes and also address and demonstrate the steps that we are making to address those mistakes and share the plan that Smothers Academy has put in place to move forward. We know in the areas of academics and special education, Smothers Academy has implemented Tier 1 curriculum long before we were even labeled a CIR school. We've partnered with high quality professional development in terms of ANET, and we also have been using other consultants that we brought on to support us in some of those areas, such as special education, governance, and finance. And then lastly, we're also getting ready to enter into a contract with an educational management operator, all to strengthen the things that we're doing presently on our campus. And we just are asking for time to continue to work with the students and families that we serve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
No.
Good afternoon. My name is Shawn Randall. I'm the board president, and I come today to ask you guys to consider giving Smothers Academy a chance. What we have done since February, we have brought on new board members. We made sure we address every finding that you guys have. We put in place different resources to help the school to do better. We also put in resources for our board. Now we have 7 strong board members. Each and every one of us are in place with a certain background and skill to help the school. Yes, we had findings. We addressed the findings. We put in the resources. We're going forward. We asking for you guys to please consider the findings that we have taken care of. Each and every one of them was addressed. Yes, there were findings. We didn't shy away from it. But we also made sure that each one was answered. Some of the things that was a finding from one year to the next year spilled over. But however, it was already solved. When we received the findings and identified them, the board was okay with the findings was being addressed. And so that's one thing we want to say, that with this board, we have new members, and we're looking forward to moving Smothers Academy in the right direction. And we're here to accept any help. We're doing board training, we're doing academic trainings with the school and leadership. So anything that we can do to move forward and help the school, we welcome it. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right, good afternoon. My name is Kevin Green. I am one of the new board members of Smothers Academy, and by new I mean of 2 weeks, right? Which is interesting because I've had an opportunity to sit in on a parent administration board discussion around the concerns that we're addressing here today, and I believe it is truly a unique space. The parental, and the student support that I saw and felt in the room as the parents not only directly addressed Mr. Smothers, the CEO and founder, but also the board members as to holding them accountable with full trust and faith in their ability to take care of the children. I found that very encouraging, and is the reason why I chose to remain a member of the board and I'm sitting here in front of you. Something else I'd like to note is the manner in which I found that the leadership prior to my joining the board has chosen to address the concerns that we're facing. It is with full transparency. It is with a full understanding and welcoming of any support that is possible. There are true operational, programmatic, financial, and previously governance concerns, and there are true corrective actions in place, not only internally, but with third-party support and new board members that are able to truly address the challenges we're facing. And I'd just like you to, and ask that you consider that as you consider the motion to move forward with revocation. There are corrective actions in place. We just need time to show the results of what we put into action. Thank you.
Again, I know we've clarified. I just want to keep clarifying because this is a matter of procedure, and I think the procedure is actually in the best interest of your institution as well as public good. This is actually a motion to begin proceedings towards revocation, which is different than moving towards revocation today. I know we've said that a few times. I just think it's important to make sure that that's clear. Okay, thank you very much. If we could have the next group of speakers come forward. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Marone Floyd. I'm an attorney in private practice in the metropolitan New Orleans area. My path to Smothers Academy was somewhat different. I came as actually a volunteer. I'm the volunteer pre-law club instructor. We actually practice law at Smothers from 12 until 1 on Friday afternoons. Our little group of kids have come and they've shown remarkable spark and grit. We've taken little boys who weren't confident, who are now making meaningful objections better than some of the ones I hear in court. We forged a partnership with Loyola University College of Law. The dean, or the former dean, has come over and has embraced Smothers and plans to participate fully in the fall. I was somewhat dismayed when I saw the findings, when I attempted to sort through what was identified in the newspaper versus the reality from serving on the board. I looked at each and every aggravating fact and asked myself, is there a mitigating fact? Is there a way to correct it? Over the last 2 to 3 weeks, and especially the last week, I've seen a cadre of professionals, many volunteers, many paid, who have come to the aid, who've come up with a remediation plan, but the plan can't be completed overnight. So again, just as my compatriots have asked, we ask for time to allow Smothers to rise to the point where it can be the school that the young boys need. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just move the mic as close to you as you can.
Good afternoon. I'm Corita Abbott. I am a parent at Smothers Academy. My boys have been at the school since the first day, since the doors opened, and what they have at Smothers Academy is a brotherhood, a love for one another, encouragement. You know, some of them came with the idea that, you know, oh, we're boys, we can hang out and just do whatever we want. And then you had your other group that were like, look, you know, we have to get this together. And so throughout time, we found that the ones who just wanted to be the Wildcats, they eventually moved into the right direction. And so I'm at the school often all around, so, you know, the boys come to me, you know, I got my report card, you know, they want to share their report card now, and they're honest about their grades, and they, you know, if they made a C or a D, they're honest about it, and it's like, okay, so what are we going to do about this? Well, I'm going to do this, you know. So the boys understand the importance of education. The boys have pride, and they have that brotherhood to, you know, stick together and encourage one another, and they love their school. It's home for them. My 8-year-old wants to be at tutoring and Saturday school all the time. You know, he just loves it. If he can't, he's like, oh man, you know, and I'm like, what 8-year-old always wants to be at school? But that's the love and the pride the kids have at their school.
Thank you.
And I'm also a board member, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Comment. Board members.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Edmondson, and then.
I was just wondering, I've just heard, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt if you were still talking.
Please, no.
Just in listening to all of you talk, are there any girls at the school?
It's an all-boys school.
No girls? Okay, thank you.
Dr. Jones?
I'm going to follow up on that question a little bit. This charter was approved before I came on the board, I believe. I think it was approved in 2015.
Yes.
Was this charter approved as an all-boys school? And does that allow it in the...
Yes.
It's not permitted by law, as we understand it. The school, as we understand it, accepts applications from both boys and girls and are required to accept both boys and girls if those students achieve a placement in the school through the lottery. And we have notified the school of that a couple of years ago.
I heard the president or the CEO say this is an all-boys school. I want to reemphasize that point. We don't have a charter for an all-boys school that I'm aware of, and we're not allowed to do that by law. How are they able to do that? Have they ever had a girl?
No. When we opened the school, we went through Orleans Parish first, then came to Jefferson Parish, went to the BESE board. Jefferson didn't have their process, so we went back to the BESE board, and that's how we were approved. And we had marketed the school, and we talked to the lawyers, we talked to everybody with LDOE, and the understanding was, the name of the school actually was, for those 3 years, Smothers Academy Preparatory School for Boys. So we were completely transparent in how we marketed the school, and I want to say maybe a month before we opened in August. So I got a call from the state to say, Smothers, you have to take For Boys off of all of our documentation, off all of our collateral that advertise the school website, all the things that refer to single gender, and we complied with that. So the department's attitude was, we're not trying to change the focus of being a male-focused school, because we understand the importance of it. As a matter of fact, during the time we were being approved, John White said he was happy that there was an all-male public choice for the families in metropolitan New Orleans.
Okay, but I still go back to the fact that, from what I just heard, you've operated with an illegal charter for the last 3 years. You've not had any girls there, and you've not advertised for any girls or accepted any girls. And that's not in accordance with the charter law, I don't believe.
I think Ms. Naranjanya can also speak to...
The only thing I wanted to add is we did cite the school for this reason in 2017 and asked, as Mr. Smothers says, to remove all references to this being a school for boys. As you suggest, the law requires that there be no discrimination based on gender.
But they didn't admit any girls after that?
They did, as far as I know, you all have not had a girl applicant.
No,
right?
we have not
applied.
to apply, correct. Right. But if they did apply, they would have admission.
Thank you for that clarification. I think there are other questions from board members.
I have a question.
Mr. Laurie?
You said it hadn't been any girls to apply?
Right.
But if they had applied, they would be admitted?
It would be admitted, yes.
Okay. Have y'all done any extra recruitment or advertisement to try to get young ladies to come to the school?
Not directly, because I think that at the time that we were approved, this was something that was understood by the state, by us, that it was something that was needed in this capacity. So it wasn't even brought forth as it was something that was illegal. It was, this is what you're serving a need. So we just kind of went down the road with what we had. And by the time we got going, we had 450 boys. And as I explained, I wouldn't have my daughter go to the school with all boys. So we've gotten to that point, Dr. Thomason, that's just who we are, and that's how we've been branded.
As I understand it, just to clarify, this is a question for you as well. There's nothing illegal or wrong about the focus being all male, correct? So
right.
The focus in the mission is ultimately not what the citation was. It was actually about the recruitment.
Right.
Yes, and I'm going to ask our lawyers to correct me if I misspeak, but as I understand it, the school can have a focused mission, but cannot discriminate on the basis of gender.
Correct. Thank you for that clarification. Additional questions for board members at this time? Okay. I think I just want to say, thank you for taking the time to be here today and share your your just very passionate case with us, and I think the other school who came forward as well. This is obviously a process in law. The regulation is very clear. It's well outlined in terms of where we go next from here. My question for Ms. Naranchania is, as this process is moving forward, which I assume will enable all parties to bring forward a much more detailed understanding of the findings and responses to the findings, what kinds of supports are actually provided for the children who are currently in the building right now, getting an education right now, getting ready to finish their year, given how much this can actually occupy in terms of resource allocation in both schools? How do we ensure that the children in the building right now are well taken care of through the rest of this year? And what supports are in place for that?
I think in both instances, if there are things that the department staff, in both instances, the schools have contacts at the department. If there are things that the department staff can do to support ongoing operations, we're happy to do that. And we certainly want to see the school year close out and students serve for the remainder of the school year. In the instance of this particular school, there are some corrective actions that we've issued that must be addressed before the year is over, particularly as it relates to students with special needs.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any additional objections to this motion? Having none, the motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item.
That concludes your agenda.